two models. It had the expensive main model, and then the not the less expensive, cheaper model, but that model had built-in ads that would play every
Oh no.
yeah, that you couldn't skip. Granted, I don't think the service ever was launched, so it doesn't really matter now, but
Yeah.
But what makes the system insane is the company behind it.
Oh, okay.
So it was made by this company called Tiger Telematics, not to be confused with Tiger Electronics.
Okay, I was
Two
gonna
different
say
companies.
that. I was like, huh.
So one of the guys behind the Gizmondo was actually, it was a guy named like Stefan Eriksson,
Yeah.
and he was a member of the Swedish Mafia.
Oh.
And he famously wrecked a Ferrari Enzo in like a high-speed crash, totaled the thing, got like caught like drunk, like this whole crazy story, like split the thing in half,
Yeah.
and it like got like arrested, like insanity.
Did he also advertise with scantily clad women a lot? Because
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of pictures of those too.
Oh yeah, they even sponsored Formula One.
I was gonna.
Hey guys, I'm Bill, also known as the Barbecue Games on Instagram.
And I'm Alex, his sister, who brings only chaos.
And together we are the Gaming and Collecting Podcast, a mostly video game centered podcast.
But half the time, we just talk about anime.
And that collecting thing, well, that's mostly just an implication at best,
So come along and enjoy us on this adventure.
as we discuss the games that shaped us. So, how you been?
It snowed today! So I had a snow day and I worked from home, which was nice.
Yeah, I had to drive in it in the storm.
Sucks to be you.
Yeah.
Did they say you had to come in?
Well, let's see. I had the option of not coming in or not getting paid, so...
Ah. You mean not getting paid, or not coming in and not getting paid, or coming in and getting paid? Okay.
Yeah. It was either I get paid or I don't come in. So, in other words, I went in.
Well, that sucks.
That's part of having to work in an industrial field.
Yeah. I don't think I honestly wouldn't have made it in. Like, I don't know how many inches you got, but we got like, I'd say like 4 to 5 inches of snow, I would say.
It wasn't even that it was like a lot. It was just that it was so early in the morning that they didn't plow anything yet.
Yeah. No. That's why I stayed home from work. I had my assistant. She helped me for a little bit, but then she took a nap, and I was like, "You're fired."
I've had 2 mornings of like terrifying driving this weekend.
Oh, really?
I mean, this week. Yeah, on Wednesday, my first day back after vacation, I get on the highway and it's like slick, like black ice everywhere. I almost did a 360.
Yeah. That was crazy. Like, I don't know what happened, but I got so lucky. Like, I was driving to work, I got on the highway, my road was fine, my highway was fine. I get off the highway, I go on like this turnpike that leads to my work, and it literally just got icy as I turned onto my work street. And it was like just a flash of when it got icy, because I'm not kidding, like, it wasn't icy my whole drive, and then suddenly it just became ice. And then, like, when my coworker, she came in like 10 minutes after me, and Berlin Turnpike was frozen, but she made it off the highway fine. But when she got onto the turnpike, that's when it was frozen. So it was like, it literally just was like flash frozen. It was nuts.
No, we had just like the highway was like frozen, so I got on going like full speed like I normally do, and all of a sudden the thing like all of a sudden starts like turning out from under me. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I catch it, and then I'm looking around and I see there's a guy off the thing in the woods turned around.
Oh my god. That could
There's
be you.
there's police cars coming from one side and there's police cars coming from the other. It's like there's been multiple accidents, and Oh boy.
It was bonkers.
So then
Look, oh, you finish.
Well, so then the first thing I do is I call our mother and I'm like, be careful getting on the highway.
Yeah, no, that was good. Well, it was bonkers because, like, so when I got to work with my coworker, we were looking at, like, the maps that show, like, the traffic maps, and they show little icons for when, like, there's an accident. And you couldn't see the map. It was just covered in accident icons.
Oh, yeah.
It was bonkers. And, like, they had to close whole highway down. So, like, there was this one picture where it was, like, a 20-car pileup just blocking the whole road. It was nuts. Like,
I think I saw one of those on Reddit today.
Yeah, it was bonkers. And my coworker was showing me where she lives. It's like there's like a hill and it curves, so it's like a hill down and hill up. So she was just sending me, like, she was showing me the pictures her neighbor was sending her of, like, just all the cars that were just like piling up because, like, it's down and like you couldn't even get up it too. So it's like basically like a pitched in area, but it's also a curve. So it's just all chaos, and it was just cars, and they just kept slamming into each other. It was bonkers.
Yeah, today was brutal because I was going in, and it wasn't even like the heavy snow. It was just that light shit that just kind of piles up and doesn't do anything. So, I mean, it was real easy to clean the car off because it all fell right off.
Yeah.
But, my God, like, getting into work, I was like... So I drove to Dunkin' Donuts to get coffee, and I didn't have my four-wheel drive on because I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that was hell. So as I'm waiting in line, I flipped it on.
Yeah.
So then I'm driving the rest of it. I'm like, oh, this is fine. Like, now it's easy.
Yeah.
Then I get on the highway, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's like people are just driving, like... So you got, like, box trucks that are just in the middle of the highway, so it's like you can't even get around them.
Yeah.
Like, I was in the breakdown lane to get around them because they were driving in the middle of the highway.
Oh, God. I'm so glad I didn't even attempt to go to work. Just hearing.
And then I had one guy right in front of my exit decided he was afraid to drive, so he just turned his hazard lights on and started going 10 miles an hour. Yeah. I was like, dude, worst possible place to do this, one of the busiest off-ramps on the entire highway.
Yeah, that's just a bad...
And he didn't even take the off-ramp. He kept going. So he jacked everyone up behind him.
Oh, no. That could have caused such a bad accident if one person's brakes didn't get it. Like, oh, my God. That could have been so bad.
And then speaking of brakes not getting it, I get off the highway, I almost spin it around because of how that road is.
Yeah.
Then I get to where I work. And where I work is... The entrance is, like, going downhill.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I hit the brakes, and I don't stop. So I just kept going. And I was like, I guess I'm going to the industrial park now. So I had to turn in the industrial park and turn around, climb up the hill, and then get in.
Well, thankfully you were able to get up the hill, because sometimes, like, you can't even get up if it's slippy down.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. It was just, I hit it. I wasn't even going fast. I just hit it just right that...
Yep.
I slid. I was like, uh-oh.
Wow.
I mean, I stopped it, but I was already halfway past, so I was kind of like, I might as well just go and turn around.
Huh. No.
But I was like, Jesus Christ. And then, okay, now I'm just ranting, but then leaving work.
Yeah.
By now, everything is like...
Down.
It's barely snowing, it's all down to pavement again.
Yep.
Nothing's wrong, so I get around the back, and I'm taking the back roads. Guy cuts me off.
Oh, great.
Didn't even make an attempt to clean the snow off his car.
Oh,
like his rear windshield was still covered. I was like,
I hate that. Oh.
So I'm getting pelted by the snow, and he's going like 10 miles an hour in a 40.
Oh, dude. Oh, that sucks.
And he's going so slow. Like, I don't like to ride up people's asses, but when you're going so slow that literally my car is riding up your ass without even touching the gas.
Oh, God. Seriously?
Yeah, I was rolling up his ass. I was like, dude. He eventually took a turn. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. I would have beeped at him at that point. Like, you're going to cause an accident at that point.
See, by the fact that he didn't even attempt to clean his snow, I figured he wouldn't even give a shit.
No, true. I hate that. That's so dangerous.
I'm just like sitting here. I'm like, where is a cop when you need one?
I know. Well, that's the thing, though. Like, they're just like, I never see one when you actually need one. Like on the highway, like when someone's like driving like insane, they're never there. It sucks.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to drive into work today. I just had to go clean off my car, which didn't take me that long, and then I had to shovel my spot out. And I shoveled my spot to the line perfectly. Because I wasn't shoveling anyone else's spot. No thank you. And it wasn't too bad, honestly. It didn't take me that. It took me like an hour, but that was like pushing the car off and then shoveling the snow, so can't complain.
Yep.
But now it will be perfect to get out tomorrow, so woo! Oh!
Yay.
Hey, Bill! What are you drinking?
Oh. I got you addicted to them, didn't I?
No, these are the same ones. You can go first.
I'm drinking a Cayman Jack margarita in a can.
And I'm drinking a Cayman Jack margarita in a glass. Little bottle. I don't really know what to call this. It's not really a bottle, but it's not a glass. It's like, I'd say it's more jar-like. Well, it's jug, yeah. I'm gonna call it a jug. It's not very big though, but it's a jug.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's been a week. We started our RuneScape adventures, for anyone who
Yes.
wants to know.
Yes,
Until my laptop decided to poop itself
Yep, good job.
again.
Yeah.
So she was just stranded in Lumbridge without me.
And then I eventually went back to the town to do a bunch of the tutorial stuff. I don't know how
How did you?
Well, it told me to make a bow and arrow, but I don't know how to make the string. How do you make the string?
Oh, you need to... this is a sneak peek at our RuneScape podcast that is eventually going to happen. You need to get flax, and you have to spin the flax on a spinning wheel.
What's flax, and how do I get it?
I'll show you next time we play.
Okay. Well, I wanted to
it's not that
play.
hard.
I wanted to play tomorrow. Can we play tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. Well,
Let me know. I have things to do in the morning. Like, I gotta get an
Okay.
oil change and stuff. So.
we'll have to see, just because I don't know how this... I'm watching it now, and the battery seems to be holding, so
Okay.
maybe.
Alright.
But,
We'll see.
worst case, I'll play on my phone or something.
Oh, okay. That would be interesting.
Yeah. Alright. So any anime?
Actually, yes. So today, because I was working from home, I kind of took the opportunity. My TV was right there as I was working on my laptop, so I put on some shows that I need to catch up on. So I finished the Rohan Kishibe. It was like a 4-episode one, and I only had the last episode to watch, so I watched that. And then I watched Agretzko season 4, which I didn't realize came out, and that was good. That was really good. I liked that. They're making a season 5. And then I watched. Well, this isn't this isn't anime, but I watched the latest season of Big Mouth, and I feel like it just gets worse and worse every season. That might be a hot take, but I thought it was pretty trash, this one. And then I just started rewatching Beastars, and there's a season 2, so I'm rewatching season 1 because I haven't seen it in a while, and then I'm gonna watch season 2. So I think I was on like episode 5, so I have a ways to go until the next season. How about you, sir?
I've been binging My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu.
Nice. I don't remember what that one is. I gotta look that up.
It's a slice of life comedy with it's like
My Teen
guy who hates the world and then other characters, and it's like kind of a rom-com, kind of not. It's very self-aware.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
It's fun. It's really amusing though, and the animation's nice.
It's an anime. Oh, I've seen pictures of this before.
Yeah, they get really fan servicey with the fan art sometimes.
Huh. I'm not surprised. Oh wait, don't you have a figure for one of these? The main character?
Yeah, I have the main female.
Oh, okay. Yep, I recognize it.
It's a fun show. It reminds me of Azumanga Daioh, only not not as with more of a plot.
Oh, okay. Huh. I'm not gonna
It's only
lie. I have no interest in watching this.
No, you probably wouldn't.
No, it just doesn't really. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I won't completely outright it, but it just might not be for me. but it does look interesting.
It's not really as for something that has romance in the title. It's not really much of a romance. It's more of a comedy than anything.
True. You know
it's
what?
Pretty.
Oh, you go.
I was just gonna say it's pretty self-aware, and it's only 3 seasons, so.
True.
And they're only 13 episodes apiece, so it's not a super long show.
You know what I've been really struggling with?
What?
Writing 2022. It's real hard. Like, whenever I have to write something with the date, I just keep putting 21, and I still haven't gotten ready to do 2022.
You'll be fine by March. That's usually when it finally.
Yeah, I know it usually kicks in by like February. March. February,
March at the latest.
Except for February, it will be February 22nd, 2022. Well.
Oh, it'll be 22222.
Yeah, 22222. Ooh.
Yeah. Other than that, I haven't really been watching anything. I'm waiting for the Yashahime dub to come back.
And then you're waiting for Attack on Titan.
Oh, I just want that to finish so I can binge it.
Well, I'm trying. I don't even think the first episode has gotten out. I don't know if it's gotten out yet.
Have to wait and see.
I don't know. I don't know what day it was coming out. I think it was. What day does it come out? Season 4. Part 2. Now I'm like, I genuinely need to know now. Final season part 2. This was 3 days away, and this was January 6th. The art looks really cool. I don't see the date though. I just want January 9th. So it hasn't started coming out yet.
Gotcha.
So it's I don't know how it's coming out, but I'm assuming it's probably like an episode a week. So you probably got a couple of weeks. You probably got.
I have a ton of like 26 and 13 episode series I want to watch, so
well, I was trying to see if
catch up on all those.
I was trying to see if it would balance out to where you could start watching season 1 of Attack on Titan, but I don't know if it will balance out right away. Balance out to when the episodes will, so I'd wait. But anyways,
I got plenty of things to watch, so.
Yep. But anyways, we have a topic today. I said it this time.
I hope you feel good about yourself.
I do. I feel great. Just kidding. I'm ugly and I'm obese. And no one likes me.
I would punch you if I could physically do it right now.
I just punched the camera. Oh, Bill just covered it up. I saw your gross finger. Ew.
Anyways, so our topic for this episode after that lovely introduction is we're actually going to be talking about the history of handheld video game consoles. Mm-hmm. And it's actually pretty insane.
Yep.
So, obviously, when you think handheld video games, the first thing that comes to mind would obviously be like a Game Boy or a DS. Yep. Or maybe a PSP.
Yep.
But it actually goes way farther back than that.
Way back.
So, I guess if we're going to start from anywhere, we'll start from the beginning with the first quote-unquote official handheld system, as you could say, was a thing called the Mattel Electronic Auto Race.
Mattel Electronic Auto Race?
Yeah. It was basically a very impressive looking solid state electronic thing. Oh. It had no moving mechanisms at all, and you only had the few controls, and it was very basic 1976 technology.
Oh, wow. I'm looking at it right now, and it's like...
It looks like a calculator, kind of, without the screen.
Well, I mean, like the screen. I'm assuming like where I'm looking at it now. There's like these red, this little like window at the bottom, and there's like spaces, and I see these red squiggles. Are those the cars supposed to be?
Yeah, I think so. And then there's that side like thing that looks kind of like the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very basic. My favorite part about the Wikipedia article is the fact that it says it was copied by the Soviet Union.
What?
I assume they made a copy of it.
Oh, why not? I guess.
Well, it was... I don't know. They made Tetris. So.
Wow. This is
But-
I mean, this is the start. You know. Oh, it has a number at the top too. Wow.
Yeah. So there was a ton of those little handheld thingamajigs. But the first, I guess you could say, official console was actually called the Merlin.
The Merlin?
The Merlin. And this thing I have not heard much about. It looks like a cell phone.
Okay.
And it was developed...
Oh.
It was made in... Okay, yeah, it was made in 78. And by Parker Brothers.
Huh.
I have no idea what this thing is supposed to be, or what genre it even is.
I mean, could it be like... Could it be like something like the Atari where you had to put like overlays to play it?
I don't know. See, we're in the early phase where I have never even seen these things in action before.
Well, it's also interesting too because I can see that there's like actual numbers that you can put on it, but then there's also images of it without the numbers where it's just like these dots. So I wonder if there was different games based off the different little things you plugged in.
So according to the article, it's like there's like a tic-tac-toe game, a memory-like
Okay.
game, a lights-out style game. There's like a bunch of very generic games that you can play. A number
Yeah.
guessing game.
Yeah.
And
I'm
it was
assuming
what's cool is it was actually developed by a former NASA employee,
Oh, that's pretty sick.
which is pretty interesting.
Huh.
And it sold 5 million units, or less than 5 million, something around there.
Wow.
So that was the first technical console, you could say.
Yeah.
But the first true handheld as we know them today. Now this thing is funny. It's called the Microvision. It was made by the Milton Bradley Company.
Oh.
And this was the first official handheld by the modern definition with interchangeable cartridges.
Blockbuster?
Yeah, that was a game.
Like, I feel like a lot of the pictures are Blockbuster. Wow.
Yeah, there was a Star Trek game on it.
Oh, wow. Oh,
So-
okay. So it's like almost like you take like the front face off and that's the
Yep.
cartridge. That's so strange.
Yeah. And it had a couple buttons built into each cartridge, and then there was a little knob at the bottom that you could use. And that was the first official, quote-unquote, handheld, I guess you could say.
Wow.
And what's funny is the pictures are very deceiving because it's actually very large.
yeah. No,
Like,
I'm like
it's like bigger than a Switch.
no, there's a picture of it in someone's hand and it's like it's bigger than I'd say my cell phone.
Oh yeah,
like-
it's a big boy. It's not a...
Yeah. But the
And we're
screen
gonna
is
be-
so tiny.
Yeah, the screen is literally a little calculator thing stuck in the middle.
I love how the Blockbuster game is just that game where you have the bar on the bottom and you bonk the ball off and it knocks. You know what I'm talking? I don't know what it's called, but you know what I mean. The boo, you move the bar and you basically bounce the ball on the top and it deletes the blocks at the top.
Yeah.
That's all Blockbuster.
Breakout or
Oh, that
Breakout
makes
or- yeah.
sense why it's called Blockbuster. Breakout, Blockbuster, because you're... I thought when I read that it was like Blockbuster, the movie rental company.
No,
Maybe-
no.
I wonder if that wasn't a thing at this moment.
I'd have to look.
But this also
But it-
could be a time where copyright wasn't actually a thing either.
Yeah, well, fair. But also, this thing was so obscure that who cared?
Well, yeah, that too.
But it's funny. This thing was made in '79, and it was at the time retailing for $49.99.
Wow.
And by 2020 money, it would be going for $309.
Oh, Jesus. That would have been a
Yeah.
response.
For the time. And it only had a handful. There was only 12 known games ever released for it. Like, you got stuff like bowling, Connect 4, pinball.
Mm-hmm.
The most well-known licensed game, quote-unquote, was Star Trek Phaser Strike.
Huh.
Which later lost its licensing, so it was just renamed as Phaser Strike.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was the first technical handheld. And then the whole idea of handhelds kind of would disappear for about a decade.
Yep.
Because the next one that we'd get... Well, that's not technically true. Because Nintendo would actually put out a series of one-shot systems known as the Game & Watch.
Oh!
And the Game & Watches were... So they were like... they were basically glorified calculators.
Yeah.
And what they each had one game built onto them.
Yep.
Yeah, so they released from 1980 to 91.
Wow.
Oh, and apparently they brought them back in 2020 to 2021.
Yeah, no, that's what I was looking at. I was like, why is that popping up on Best Buy?
Oh, right, because they did new ones, but they played like Zelda and Mario.
Yeah,
Like the
this
NES
one's
games.
Super Mario Bros. 2. That's funny.
But the actual original Game & Watches were basically calculators, and the whole gimmick was they had a game, and then they could tell time, so Game & Watch.
Oh, haha.
And they all had different designs, and like they were famous because one of them, actually, the Donkey Kong one, was where the D-pad was created.
Oh.
Which was part of just how they it was just part of like a design oversight to figure out how to make the things work.
No,
The Donkey Kong one actually looks like the DS.
Yeah. No, that's what I was gonna say. It's like a DS before the DS. I was about to say that because I just looked it up. That's crazy.
And these were basically like it's. I don't know if any of these were actually real. I'm trying to remember if these were even released in America or not. I think they were. I just can't remember.
I think
we
they
weren't
were.
alive.
I think
we weren't alive.
I think they were. Like I'm looking at the I don't see any like Japanese like text, but I can't really tell too because it's kind of. I feel like these were American. I definitely feel like they were.
I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
I don't see any like hiragana or any katakana on the images I see.
Oh no! It says the series sold 43.4 million worldwide. So.
Oh, okay. I think they were in the U.S. and I'm
going to assume.
It's funny now making this connection because I knew of the term Game & Watch because of Smash Brothers, but I never really looked up what it was from, and now I know. That's kind of funny. It actually makes me appreciate that more in Smash Brothers because it's like, oh, like it's looking back on their history. It's nice.
And the guy who created the Game & Watch was one of Nintendo's main guys, Mr. Gunpei Yokoi, who, if you remember from our Virtual Boy episode, was also the creator of the Virtual Boy.
Oh.
And his next creation following the Game & Watch was actually the quote-unquote definitive, when people think handheld, they think this, and it was the original Game Boy.
Yep.
And the original Game Boy is probably one of the most important, like, handhelds ever created.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was literally, like, it's hard to explain. It was literally, like, a portable NES that you could take on the go.
Yeah.
In a sense. And granted, it was been black and white, or I guess black and green, as you want to say, for the first one. Had very rudimentary graphics initially.
Yep.
But
and another fact. It also survived a bomb in the Gulf War.
That's true, and it's still playing and that bastard is still playing Tetris to this day. But
sorry, I had to.
You know what? A little side note here. I'm about to rant for a minute.
Oh God.
So, when we were in middle school, we had a trip to New York. That was the big thing.
Yep.
we're from Massachusetts, so it's like that's considered a big thing for us.
Yeah, New York.
So this was
big.
like back. This was like back in like the mid 2000s, and we take the trip, and it's a fucking disaster from day one. It's raining the whole time.
Oh God.
It was our trip got delayed. It was supposed to be early in the year, but it got delayed towards the end of the year. So of course everybody hated each other by this point.
Oh no.
We were about to finish middle school, and we were all going off into separate high schools by this point. So it was like already like shit was already hitting the breaking point.
Yeah.
So we go to the trip, and we're stuck in these groups, and of course all the groups were made early in the year before
Yeah.
when people still liked each other. So now all the groups are miserable.
Yep.
So my group was a freaking disaster from like the minute like
Oh no.
a bunch of former associates I used to know,
Yep.
and they had the dumbest ideas of fun.
Oh,
Like it was
no.
like,
Didn't you want to go to Banana Republic
Okay.
because they wanted to see banana?
no. We had, so there was a few places we had to go. I'm ranting for a minute, but this is somewhat related.
Like the wax museum.
Yeah, we had to go to the Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, which admittedly was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then they were like, so then we went to the giant Toys R Us with the Ferris wheel in it back when that was still a thing.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever. I mean, I didn't really want to ride the Ferris wheel, but whatever, it is what it is.
Yep.
Then they want to go to fucking Champs Sporting Goods, you know, a thing that we have fucking everywhere.
Oh God. Yeah.
All because it had giant bobbleheads in it. I was like, really? And then they're like, where do we go? And I'm like, the Nintendo store's over there. And they're like, nah, that's boring. But then they want to go to Banana Republic. Because they thought it was a monkey store.
Oh.
And I looked
no.
at them like, it's not. It's a high-end clothes store. And they're like, nah, it's definitely not. And then we walk up to it and they're like, oh. So then, of course, we have to walk around it for 5 minutes. It's like...
Oh no. And you know
So,
it's
yeah,
like it's so funny too because like I shop at Banana Republic now and I'm like thinking of like middle schoolers cannot afford Banana Republic. Also,
no, it
they
was
cannot,
so stupid.
They can't afford it, but they also can't fit into Banana Republic. They are not your size yet. Those are like for women and like adults. Like that's an adult store. Like
I was so mad.
Why?
Like, because I had stupid people I was hanging out with at the time. I don't care if they listen to this, but yeah. So I didn't get to see
Banana Republic was a monkey store, so I think
even though I
stupid.
told them 3 times it wasn't, but whatever.
Yeah.
The only cool parts about that trip were the wax museum and going to the top of the freaking the one of the buildings, not the Empire State Building because that was too far away. But
just a random ass building.
no, it's an actual. It's a famous building in
I'm sorry. I can just picture our high school just being like, "All right, guys, let's climb the fire escape to this random ass building to get here."
Yeah, I could actually see that happening at Old Colony, but
I could totally see the Old Colony doing that. Just be like, "All right, everyone, get your feet up."
No. Old Colony would have just been like, "All right, guys, be back here by 5. If you're not here, see ya."
Old Colony wouldn't have gone to New York. They would have gone to like the Bronx or something.
No, Old Colony would have. No, Old Colony would have gone to the field like 3 blocks away and been like, I don't know, try this.
Have fun. Oh God, I don't even know if my Old Colony did a like senior trip. Did you do a senior trip or anything?
You did a senior trip because I picked you up.
Yeah.
We didn't.
Oh yeah, we went to Six
I'm ranting
Flags.
about high school now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you guys had a trip. They decided to put. My class decided to put all of our senior money into the prom, which half the class didn't even go to. I have to say.
No.
Yeah, I'm still not bitter about that. But
I remember I actually had fun on that senior trip. It was actually pretty fun because I was like with pretty good friends. So.
Yeah, and I had to pick you up from the school, and I did a burnout out of the parking lot.
Thanks, Bill. I know you picked me up in the janky truck. Wasn't it me and? Did you pick up someone else or was it just me?
Yeah, 2 of your friends.
Oh yeah. It was
in the
2
Mustang.
of my friends from Oh yeah. No, I thought it was in the truck.
No, it was the Mustang.
Oh.
Because I burned out of the parking lot.
Yeah, that was fun. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for being a good brother.
I burned out of the parking lot and I flipped off the school bus as I drove by.
Nice.
I was like, fuck you. Even though I actually didn't leave Old Colony on bad terms, but whatever.
No.
But anyways, back to...
Anyways,
yeah, so
back
rant
to our
over.
podcast.
Rant over. I didn't get to go to the Nintendo store in New York.
Yep.
But
Womp, womp. What did
back
I
to
even
Handheld.
have to do? Like, was that... I just out of curiosity, is that Nintendo DS that was in the Gulf War, is it in that store?
Yeah, there's a whole museum to see.
Oh,
like,
okay, because I was just like, I wasn't making the connection of why we went from talking about that to the Nintendo store. Okay, so there's a museum there.
Yeah, that's where the Game Boy is. It's in that museum.
Bill, we should do a trip to New York.
Yeah, not until the world's normal again, but...
Yeah, but we should, and we'll go to that, and then we'll find a figure store.
Yeah. But, anyways, so... Back to the Game Boy itself now. The Game Boy is fascinating because it had... So, the handheld race has always been one of the most one-sided curb stomps of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And it all starts with this era right here.
Oh.
Because... So, the Game Boy, when you look at it... So, this era had four major entries. There was, obviously, the Game Boy.
Yep.
There was Sega's Game Gear.
Oh, yep.
There was Atari's Lynx.
Yep.
And then the TurboGrafx NEC had the Turbo Express. Now, looking at them from an uneducated, like, someone who doesn't understand gaming or, like, the history of gaming, looking at the four of them from just an outside glance, you'd think the Game Boy was the worst one of the four.
Yeah.
Because it was in black and white, and
Yep.
it really didn't have anything distinguishing to it. But then you look at the Game Gear, which is a full color,
Yep.
and had really nice, like, colorful graphics that were actually pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the Lynx, which was incredibly impressive looking. Oh, and they all had backlit screens, too. That was another key thing, because the Game Boy did not have a backlight, either.
No.
And then the Turbo Express was literally a TurboGrafx 16 in a handheld, and it could play the same games between the two.
Oh.
The difference is, though, the Game Boy only needed 4 AA's, and you were going to get, like, almost 30, like, to 40 hours of gameplay.
Yep.
The Game Gear needed 6, and you were lucky to get, like, 6 hours.
Ugh.
The Lynx also needed 6, and you would also be lucky to get 4 hours. 4 to 5. And I believe the Turbo Express was also bad. That one I don't know much about.
Yeah.
Other than it's really cool and I want one, but they're expensive.
And this was also the time where rechargeable
Batteries.
things were not really a thing.
They existed, but they weren't convenient.
No. They were there, but, like, they weren't there. You know, it wasn't easy to get them or anything. It's not like an iPhone that comes with it.
Yeah, it was an additional thing that you had to buy.
Yeah.
And it didn't even work that good.
Yeah.
So, that was one of the key reasons why the Game Boy succeeded. The other key thing was Tetris.
Ah.
Because the Game Boy, initially they wanted to put Super Mario Land as the pack-in game.
Yep.
But then they found out they got the rights to Tetris. And the story of how Nintendo, like, the story of Tetris and how Nintendo got the rights to it is an incredibly detailed and, like, amazing story that I don't have time to do justice. So I highly recommend you watch the Gaming Historian's video on it.
Yep.
Because it is amazing. It's over an hour long.
Oh, wow.
But it is an amazing story that is surprisingly deep.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, so the Game Boy's other key thing was Tetris, because I believe it was Shigeru Miyamoto who made the point, but it was Mario's a game that gamers will love. Tetris is a game that everyone will love.
Yeah.
Someone else might have said that, but I know someone made that analogy. And it's true, because the game, everyone played Tetris.
Yeah.
Everyone bought a Game Boy to play Tetris. It came with Tetris.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most addicting games ever made.
Yeah.
Now, the Game Boy won it by a landslide. It's like not even a competition. The thing is, the Game Gear itself is a very impressive little system in its own right that is only hampered by the fact that it had shit battery life.
Yeah, no. I mean, because it's a cool console. It looked cool, too. I mean, like...
And I mean, it didn't sell bad. It sold 10 million units. Like, that's still a decent amount.
Oh, yeah.
And it actually had an adapter that could play Master System games because they were basically the same thing.
Wow.
And it also had a TV tuner that you could plug into it and watch TV on it. Back when that was possible, when antennas were still
Cool,
around.
I guess.
The Turbo Express also had that.
Wow.
It was a chunky little thing, but to be fair, the original Game Boy wasn't exactly the most tiny system either.
Yeah. No,
the
it
back,
wasn't.
Have you ever seen the ads for the Game Gear?
I haven't.
So one of them, most of them made fun of the Game Boy for being black and white.
Yeah.
One of them is famous where it was a guy sitting on a bench playing a Game Boy, and he just, the joke is he picks up a dead squirrel and starts bashing his head in so he sees colors. Yeah, early gaming ads were great.
Oh,
But,
wow.
And then some guy comes in and says, "Hey, don't do that. Play a Game Gear."
Yeah, don't hurt yourself. Oh,
Yeah.
I sensed my cat. Just kidding. I saw her out of the corner of my eye, but then I didn't know where she went. But then I found her. She's behind
And
me.
then, honestly, in my opinion, the most tragic of these systems is the Lynx.
Yeah.
Because the Lynx was incredibly powerful for the time. It's like an in-between 8-bit and 16-bit.
Yeah.
And it had some super impressive graphics for the time.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
one of my favorite versions of Clax. Keep in mind, Clax was available on all three of these systems, and technically the Turbo Express because it was on that too, the Turbo Graphics. But it was cool. It only sold 3 million, and its big issue was the batteries, but also the thing was fucking huge.
Yeah.
Because focus group. So there's two versions of it. There's the original version, which is massive.
Yep.
And the whole reason it is massive is because they did a focus group and they were interviewing kids.
Oh,
And
no.
a lot of kids made the point that they discovered that a lot of kids like very big things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, handhelds are one of the few things that they don't like
Don't
big.
like big.
Which is a shame, because
Yeah.
it's actually a really cool system.
It is.
Thankfully, there was a redesigned second model, which is much smaller, and it's around the size of the Game Gear. And it's honestly the more attractive system, in my opinion.
You know what's funny though? Like looking at it, I found like I was looking at pictures and then I found this guy like he did like a YouTube video and looking at it in his hand, it's about the size of the Switch, I would say.
It's even bigger.
Yeah, I'd say it's like a roughly. I think it's thicker, but I think lengthwise it's about the same.
Yeah. But the second one was...
Oh, I was gonna say, Clax, you turned it like played
you
it
had to
vertical.
turn it. So some games you could hold vertically.
That's
'cause the
actually
screen-
kind of cool.
Oh, and here's the Lynx's other cool feature. It's like one of maybe like... There's like 2 systems out in the world that do this.
Yeah.
But it was ambidextrous.
Oh.
So you notice how there's 2 sets of buttons?
Yep.
You can actually flip the screen and play it the other way.
Oh.
So you could play it left-handed if you really wanted.
Oh, that's pretty nice.
The thing is, gamers have adapted that it doesn't really matter. Everyone's just
Yeah.
can play righty style. But it was an option at the time, which was
Yeah.
kind of cool.
No, that's pretty neat for the time. I mean, it
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
go anywhere in the future,
No,
but it was interesting to see at least.
It was a colossal failure, which is sad because the thing is amazing.
Yeah.
So following that era, the Game Gear essentially the Game Boy curb stomped them, and it established Nintendo as basically the front runner of this era, of this whole scene, of the handheld market. And before we move on, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Woo! Break time.
And we're back.
And we're back after talking about the Game Burt.
Anyways, so...
Jokes. Inside jokes.
Yeah. Sure. But anyways, so moving on. So as we stated before, the Game Boy basically ran away with it.
Yeah.
All the other systems lasted. Like the Game Gear itself lasted for a bit, but it was never to the same level as the Game Boy.
Game Boy. Yeah.
The Lynx and the Turbo Express never had a chance.
Yeah.
Granted, the NEC, the TurboGrafx, that was in its own weird little bubble, and Atari was dying.
Yeah.
Because the next thing Atari would release was the Jaguar. Believe
Yeah.
it or not.
Which is underrated. Much better than the N64, I will say.
Yeah. So is the Lynx. The Lynx is very underrated too.
Yes.
But anyways, moving on. So the Game Boy would actually be on the market for a very long time.
I'm sure.
Like it ran from 89 to 2003 officially.
Oh, wow.
Keep in mind this includes the different variations.
Yes.
So there was the Game Boy Light eventually, not the Game Boy Light, the Game Boy Pocket, which was second eventually released, which was essentially a much sleeker, had a cleaner looking screen, and only ran off 2 batteries, but still had amazing battery life.
Nice.
And then that was followed up by the Japan-only Game Boy Light, which was a Game Boy with a backlight, essentially.
Oh, nice.
And it had a badonkadonk.
It had a dump truck.
The battery cover was like molded to the battery, so it had these 2 battery ridges on the back of it.
Oh. Wait, I want to find a picture of that now. Game Boy Light battery cover. Oh, wow. It did have a badonkadonk.
Yeah. But that was never released outside of Japan. Although you can import them because they're all region free.
Yep.
And it's kind of cool for what it is. It's still not in color, but it's got a backlight.
Yeah.
And then that was succeeded by... So, this is where we get to kind of an argument that I've seen. So the original Game Boy and Game Boy Pocket and Game Boy Light, those lasted from 89 to 98.
Mm-hmm.
In 98, the Game Boy finally saw an upgrade.
Yep.
In the form of the Game Boy Color.
Huh.
And this is where things get a little debatable, because some people consider the Game Boy Color its own system.
Yep.
And others consider it just another upgrade.
Yeah.
The reason I consider it its own system was there was exclusive software for it.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Like, because there was Game Boy Color exclusive games that only worked on the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty I'd agree with your statement that it's its own console, because you can't play a Game Boy Color game on the Game Boy, so...
Yeah, because... See, this is where it gets confusing, because the Game Boy Color sold 54.3 million, but the official sales numbers for the Game Boy line are 118 million.
Oh, so
that
they
includes,
combo the color and
they combo the color in the original. But the color is fascinating because before the color came out, the Game Boy was kind of like seen as like old news.
Yeah.
And like it was kind of sinking in behind, and people were kind of like, yeah, that was a fad, so we're moving on now.
Yeah.
And around this time is where you actually start to get more competitors again.
Oh, okay.
So Sega, being ahead of their time, as usual, comes out with the Nomad.
Oh, okay.
The Nomad now was the successor to the Game Gear. Yep. And for all intents and purposes, the Nomad was a Genesis.
Yeah,
it played
Genesis games in it.
Yeah. It played Genesis games, most of the library. I think there's a few exceptions that didn't work.
Yeah.
It's chunky. It still needed... It's so chunky to the fact that they couldn't fit the batteries inside of it. They had to have an external battery pack that goes on the back.
Yep.
So it's a chunky motherfucker.
It's thick.
But, yeah. So, although, let's be real, Game Gear, Lynx, Nomad, you're not playing these with batteries nowadays. You're playing them with AC adapters, because they all had AC adapter plugins.
Yes.
But beside the point, the Lynx, I mean, not the Lynx, the Nomad itself is super impressive.
Yeah.
It has a full 6 buttons, so it can play the 6-button fighting games.
Yep.
It's got a fully backlit screen, although I will admit, nowadays, the original Nomad screens have not aged well.
Yeah.
Like, mine in particular is modded with a new screen that's 10 times better.
Oh, okay.
But it has one of the best D-pads ever made.
Yeah, it looks comfortable.
It is so comfortable. And it's literally a Genesis. The problem is, though, it was super expensive.
Oh, yeah.
I think it had a max 4 hours of battery life.
Oh, that kind of sucks too.
Yeah. But what made it cool was you could plug it in, and then you could plug it into a TV.
Oh.
And it had a controller port in the bottom for 2 players.
Oh.
It was literally the Switch before the Switch.
That's pretty awesome. I wonder if, like, when they were figuring out the Switch, if they researched that and they just...
I doubt it.
It might have been a little inspiration from someone, because I'm sure people might have known... Because I'm sure they have, like, a history of things, so they don't copy things exactly, or they can.
Maybe.
I don't know. I feel like it might have been in there a little bit, maybe. Not directly,
maybe
but
lightly.
A little inspiration. The concept.
Because technology has marched on so far.
Oh, yeah, no.
What killed the Game Gear was it was impractical, it was expensive, and it was the battery situation.
Huh.
So, but before it failed,
you want to
Sega
buy
was
one? It's on Amazon.
I already
It's in stock.
I already own one. I already own one.
Well, you could have another one. It's in the box.
I don't need another one. But beside that,
Yep.
so Sega was thinking because Nintendo was kind of on a down, they could maybe swoop in.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there was 2 other companies that were making systems.
Dun dun.
So, Gunpei Yokoi, after the Virtual Boy debacle,
Yep.
he had moved on, and he had left Nintendo on good terms. Like, he had made the Game Boy Pocket before he left.
Yep.
Not contrary to the whole he left in shame thing, which is a myth.
Yeah. No, he didn't
He
leave
had
in
left-
shame.
No, he stayed longer than he wanted because he didn't want to leave directly after the Virtual Boy's failure.
Yeah.
But after he left, he went and formed his own company called Kyoto Labs.
Yep.
And they worked in a partnership with Bandai, and he released the Wonder Swan.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately,
I remember you talking about. Oh yeah, what happened? Oh.
Unfortunately, he would pass away before it officially released.
Yep.
But it was a pretty cool little system and pretty advanced for the time. The first model was in black and white, so it was kind of but the second model was full color.
Yep.
And it honestly was about on par with the early Game Boy Advance,
Bill.
which we'll be getting to soon.
I like the
What?
Wonder Swan. You know why?
Why?
They had a One Piece game. So
There's many
I'm
One
sold.
Piece games on it.
But I'm sold. It has One Piece. I'll buy it. Give me 11. I'll take all the One Piece games.
I mean, Alex.
Yeah. Do you have a One Piece game?
No, not a One Piece game, but I do have.
Oh, those are Inuyasha games.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
There was
I liked
three
Inuyasha too.
There was 3 Inuyasha games that came out for it.
But One Piece
But-
is better.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Wonder Swan existed, and you know the Wonder Swan, it never came out in America,
Well,
but it was
should've.
fair. It was popular enough in Japan. And then another newcomer to the ring was Neo Geo, or
Oh.
SNK, I should say, who released the Neo Geo Pocket.
Yep.
And the Neo Geo Pocket was interesting because it also was in black and white initially, had no backlight, but had excellent battery life.
Yep.
What hurt Neo Geo, though, see, the original Neo Geo Pocket never came out in America. The Pocket Color, though, its successor, did. The problem is, though, it had to compete with the Game Boy Color.
Yes.
But before we get to that, we should talk about the surprise game that saved the Game Boy and killed any chance of any other company stealing that crown.
Oh, okay.
It was a little pair of games called Pokemon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
You
sells
know.
it. Yeah.
the cultural phenomenon that is still going on to this day.
Yep.
Yeah, so safe to say Pokemon revived the Game Boy.
Yep.
And then the Color came out, and basically it had its second go at life. Because now the Game Boy Color's out, it's full color.
Yeah.
Still not backlit, which sucks, but, at the time you didn't really notice.
Yeah, and didn't they also have those, like, light attachments?
The
Didn't we
worm.
have
The
those?
worm.
Or
Yeah.
were those for the Game Boy Advance? I think we had them
They're
for the
both.
Game Boy. Okay, it was both.
They're both. But, yeah, so the Game Boy Color was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the Nomad had no chance.
Yeah.
The Wonder Swan never came out over here, so it puttered along in Japan for a bit.
I wish we
And-
had the Wonder Swan. It came out with like 6 One Piece games, so I want a Wonder
be
Swan
fair-
just for that.
To be fair, when those came out, One Piece wasn't a thing in America yet.
I don't give a shit. I want to play it.
But anyways, moving on.
Aggressive.
And then of course the Neo Geo Pocket. The Neo Geo Pocket is interesting because it's a great little system, and it honestly is on par with the Game Boy Color in pretty much every way. The problem is it did not have the game library to stand up against the Game Boy Color, and it faded into obscurity. And once again, it was.
There's a Switch version. You can play it on the Switch, I guess.
Oh, the Neo Geo Pocket. Yeah, they released a ton of Pocket games on the Switch.
Ah, that's cool. Sorry, I got
But-
distracted by that.
But anyways, so Game Boy Color is kicking along. It's extremely successful. We've had multiple Pokemons since
Yep.
then.
Pokemon.
What's funny because there was like 3 categories of games at this point. There was the OG Game Boy games, which were the gray cartridge ones.
Yep.
Then you had these black cartridge ones, which were Game Boy Color games, but they still worked on original Game Boy.
Yep.
And then you had the clear plastic ones, which were the Game Boy Color games, which would only work on the Game Boy Color.
Yep.
Like Pokemon Silver and Gold could work on both,
Yep.
but Pokemon Crystal was exclusive to the Color.
Huh.
So, during this time, then Nintendo's working on a system called Project Atlantis, I want to say,
Oh, okay.
which was this super ahead of its time handheld that was like full color, full backwards, like on par with the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
But it was just too expensive and it wouldn't have worked for the time. So
Yeah.
it ends up getting shelved in favor of the Game Boy Color, which was still chugging along, selling very well.
Yep.
Eventually, once technology moves forward, Nintendo eventually moves on to the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
Now, the Game Boy Advance... I find the Game Boy Advance fascinating because it had such a, in hindsight, very short lifespan.
Oh, really?
Well, in a sense,
Yeah.
because it launched in 2001,
Yep.
and it was officially discontinued in 2010. But,
Yeah.
what came out in 2004?
Yep.
The DS.
Oh.
So, which had a Game Boy Advance slot.
Yeah, which you could, and was.
So the Game Boy Advance itself was very here and then, blink and miss it. Like
Yeah.
it was here and then it wasn't.
Yeah.
But so before we get into the DS, let's talk about the Advance.
Yeah.
So it sold in its time across all its different variations, 81.5 million.
Yep.
Incredibly successful to the time, had multiple Pokemons, was a 32-bit system, so it was more powerful than like the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
But one thing that hurt it initially was, once again, it didn't have a backlight, and it had a very dark screen.
Yep.
So a lot of games early on would wash out their color palettes
Yep.
to brighten up the games for gameplay, so you could see them with the screen.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember how many like car trips you'd have the Game Boy up in the corner of the car with the light so you could see it,
Yep.
and jacking up your neck in the process.
Yep.
So, and its other big negative was its sound, which it was on par with the Super Nintendo, but it did not have the Super Nintendo's sound capabilities.
Yep.
Because the sound cards in the Super Nintendo were made by Sony.
Oh.
And take a guess who was not friends with Nintendo by this point.
Not Sony.
Yeah. So they weren't sharing that anymore.
Nope. They were like, fuck you, we're making our own shit.
Nintendo had to make their own sound card for the Game Boy Advance, which was passable.
Yeah.
The games that were made with it sound great.
Yeah.
The problem is there's a lot of Super Nintendo ports on the Game Boy
and those sound
Advance.
bad.
Not all of them. Some of them don't sound good, though.
Oh, okay.
Now, the Game Boy Advance is interesting because the original only lasted, like, I think a couple of years. Like, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, and then they remodeled it with, like, the flip one.
The Game Boy Advance SP, which to this day I still don't know what SP stands for. I don't think it actually stands for anything. I think it's just...
Special... person. You're a special person.
The S does apparently stand for special.
Special person, because you're a special person playing the Game Boy SP.
Oh no! The S and P stand for special.
Oh.
Huh. Interesting. But yeah, the SP was a much better design. It was thinner. It was designed more like the Game Boy Color in shape.
Yep.
Had a clamshell screen. Backlit. Well, the original was front lit. There was a later model that was backlit. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, it was rechargeable.
Ah, that is nice.
And the battery lasted forever.
That's also nice.
Like my Game Boy Advance right now, it's been sitting up in its case for probably 5 years. I haven't charged it. It still probably will turn on.
Wow.
But the SP was amazing.
Oh,
what?
You go. I was going to say they made a lot of different color variations.
Oh, yeah. Colors were all over the place.
Yeah.
The SP, though, was so far ahead of its time. The only problem it had, it did not have a headphone jack.
Oh.
Which was so weird.
Yeah. I guess maybe they just forgot about it in the design.
No, they had an add-on later that you could use to, but the system itself does not.
Yeah.
And it would chug along. Sold very well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Then, in 2004, we get its a successor, the DS.
Oh, what about the mini guy, the tiny one?
So the micro we'll get to.
Oh, okay.
Now the DS is funny because Nintendo is always really weird when they announce a new system. Mm-hmm. They always act like, with the exception of the Wii U, which was deader than dead.
Yep.
They always act like the new system coming in isn't a replacement for their previous system.
Yeah.
Like when the DS came out, they made this whole thing about how it was another pillar of systems alongside the Game Boy Advance.
Yep.
Which was horseshit because the thing had a Game Boy Advance slot in the bottom of it.
Yep.
And it was and most people we knew from the time referred to the DS as the Game Boy DS.
Yep.
Even though it was technically the first system not to use the Game Boy line name.
Yeah.
And the DS was essentially it was kind of in between a N64 and a PlayStation, I guess you could say, in terms of power.
Yep.
But it had beautiful 2D graphics, and its big gimmick was the two screens.
Yes.
One was a touchscreen, one was a regular screen.
Yep.
And during this time, there was also a few more, like, no-name kind of competitors.
Yep.
Like, there was the Nokia N-Gage.
Oh.
And the N-Gage... Honestly, I really want to get an N-Gage sometimes. It's a really fascinating... Yes.
Is it also a phone?
Okay, so that was its gimmick. The N-Gage was both a handheld and a phone. But it was a very flawed design.
Yeah.
So the major thing was the screen was taller than it was wide. That's just odd.
Yes, an interesting choice.
The original model. It's the original model's most infamous design choice was the battery. The batteries actually covered the cartridge slot, so you'd have to take the battery out to put a new game in.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it wasn't a great design choice. And then the most infamous design choice of the system was where they put the microphone and phone receivers.
Yeah.
They were on the side, so it looked like you had a taco on the side of your head.
Oh, that probably looks so stupid.
Look up like N-Gage like taco phone or something like that. You'll see some jokes.
Oh, yep, I'm seeing some pictures.
Yeah. It's not a pleasant design.
No.
So, unfortunately, that system is always going to forever be infamously remembered for that.
Yeah.
But that was followed up by the N-Gage QD.
Yep.
Which was the updated re-release. Which
looks a lot nicer.
Oh, yeah. The screen's still taller than it is wide.
Mm-hmm.
But it has... The microphone is on the front now, so that's already a better thing.
Yeah.
The cartridge slot is on the bottom, so you don't have to take the battery out. And it just has a much more pleasing look.
Yeah, I will say, like, it had, like, a weird, like, textured... I don't think it's textured, but it had, like, a pattern. And it looks a lot better. It looks more phone-like, I would say. The QD. Than, like, video game console. But also can work because of it. I think it's a more pleasing for someone who also wants to have a cell phone.
Yeah, so the N-Gage was, like... It was more powerful than a Game Boy, but not by much.
Yeah.
Because it could do 3D, but it wasn't particularly good 3D.
No.
But it could do also, like, good 2D games to a degree. Because it had a port of Sonic Advance on it.
Oh. Hey, why not?
Called Sonic N.
Yeah.
Oh, it also had The Sims Bustin' Out on it. That was fun.
Yeah, that's something.
Which is the same as the Game Boy game. But it did have a few... Also, it had a few killer apps, though, which actually did make it stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it had 2 games called Pathway to Glory, which were cool, like, little strategy games.
Oh, okay.
And then it had this cool little RPG called Pocket Kingdom, which was charming.
Nice.
But other than that, it was kind of obscure.
Yeah.
And it really... I want one someday, because I'm interested in it.
Huh.
Now, it failed, obviously, and the
Yeah.
Game Boy Advance moved on. Another handheld from this era, which was around the same time around the DS point, was the Gizmondo.
Oh.
Now, the Gizmondo is one of the most baffling and bizarre handhelds probably ever made.
Oh. It's also taco-shaped.
Not as... It's not a phone, though.
Not as bad, yeah. But taco-esque.
So, the Gizmondo is hilarious. Because of its... I mean, the system itself is actually pretty powerful for the time. Like, it was weaker than a PSP, but stronger than a DS.
Okay.
The thing is, it only had, like, 12 games released for it.
Ah.
I mean, it barely sold anything because it was so... You could only get it at these weird kiosks.
Huh.
And its marketing was terrible.
Oh, no.
But also, the biggest, most infamous thing about it was, like, it had 2 models. It had the expensive main model, and then not the less expensive, cheaper model, but that model had built-in ads that would play every freaking...
Oh, no.
That you couldn't skip. Granted, I don't think the service ever was launched, so it doesn't really matter now, but...
Yeah.
But what makes the system insane is the company behind it.
Oh, okay.
So it was made by this company called Tiger Telematics, not to be confused with Tiger Electronics.
Okay,
So
I was going to say that. I was like, huh.
So, one of the guys behind the Gizmondo was actually... It was a guy named, like, Stefan Eriksson.
Yep.
And he was a member of the Swedish Mafia.
Oh.
And he famously wrecked a Ferrari Enzo in, like, a high-speed crash, totaled the thing, got, like, caught like drunk, like this whole crazy story, like split the thing in half,
Yeah.
and it like got like arrested, like insanity.
Did he also advertise with scantily clad women a lot? Because
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of pictures of those too.
Oh yeah, they even sponsored Formula One.
I was gonna say because this that's crazy.
Yeah, this thing, it's I always joke, I'm like, it's the one system that you can that can tie together with overpriced Swedish Mafia and Sticky Balls.
Yeah.
That was the killer app.
Wow.
Sticky Balls.
Huh.
It's actually a fun game from what I've seen, but that's beside the
So
point.
strange. So
I kind of want one, but at the same time I really don't.
yeah. It might tie you to the mafia.
No, I just don't want to pay that money for something that's really
no.
hard to find.
That's crazy.
But anyways, yeah, going back now to the DS, let's go back to good systems.
Alright. No,
So,
I want to just keep watching trash. Talking about trash.
Well, we can talk about the Gamecom. I was gonna skip it because it's boring, but
What's the Gamecom? Sorry.
the Gamecom was Tiger Electronics handheld.
Oh. Oh, I said
It was-
con when I was looking, and that just brought me to video game conventions. Oh, the Gamecom. Is it black and white?
Yes,
That's kind of
but it has a touchscreen.
Cool. But it's in black and
And-
white.
And it had an internet modem,
Why?
text only.
Oh, fun. Yeah, that seems...
You know, my favorite thing. So it had a modem, but it had to be plugged to a router. Still,
Oh, wow.
AVGN did a video on it, and his quote was great because it was literally like, "Why don't you just use a computer?"
That's... yeah.
But yeah, the system was the Gamecom is incredibly shit.
It's funny when you Google that because a lot of I go Gamecom Tiger, and it's showing me just a lot of pictures of actual tigers rather than the game console.
Yeah, the Gamecom was crap. It did have some surprisingly decent like software though.
Yeah.
Not saying the software was good, but it had like
It had
like
something.
it had Sonic on it. It had Resident Evil 2,
Oh,
Duke
wow.
Nukem, I think Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Well, because at this point, Sega wasn't venturing into the handhelds anymore, right?
No, and they made a game for the Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Oh, okay.
That's really good.
Huh.
But anyways, moving back to the DS now.
Yes.
So the DS was during the build up to the DS, we get the next big contender.
Yep.
Like the actual first real threat Nintendo's had
Yes.
since the Game Gear, I guess you could say.
Yep.
The Sony PSP. Now,
the Sony.
PlayStation Portable, PSP, whatever you want to call it. So, keep in mind, at this point in gaming history, Sony had dominated the last two generations.
Yeah.
PlayStation curb stomped
2.
everything. PlayStation 2 still is undefeated to this
Yeah.
day. Ironically, the system that came closest to beating it is we'll get to in a minute, but yeah, so Sony was on top of the world at this point. So when you hear that they're going into handhelds, people immediately were like, "Oh, Nintendo's screwed."
Yeah.
Plus the fact that the PSP looked like a mini PlayStation 2 in terms of graphics, while the DS was being very experimental with two screens and had decent graphics, but they weren't as good as the PSPs.
Yeah.
So then they release, and so the DS is an instant hit right from the start. Now the PSP, on the other hand, is a success too.
Yeah.
But not quite to the same amount.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets kind of weird. Because, so, in terms of sales numbers, the DS is the second best-selling video game system of all time.
Yep.
Right behind the PS2. and there's like only a small margin. The PSP, on the other hand, sold in its lifetime. Actually sold between 80 to 82 million units.
Yep.
That's far from a failure. The problem is it's being compared to one of the greatest video game devices ever made.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, when you actually look at sales numbers, the PSP actually sold more than the 3DS.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not that it counts, because I think software numbers on the 3DS were higher, but the PSP software numbers weren't bad either.
Yeah.
The PSP was a solid handheld, and it had some cool ideas. Like, it was online capable. It had you could watch movies on it for a short period of time before they gave up on that.
Yeah.
And it had a ton of really cool games. The problem is it kind of gained a reputation as a JRPG machine, which it really was.
Yeah.
I mean, as a JRPG fan, that's not a bad thing.
No, yeah. But I guess the DS was just more all-arounder. Anyone could play it. Like, it didn't matter if you were this fan or that fan. Like, a kid, all ages could play it, you know.
It had Pokemon, first off.
Yeah, it had Pokemon.
It also had, early in its launch, it had games like Nintendogs.
Yep.
Which was, at the time, very popular.
And then Mario, like, 3D. Wasn't it Super Mario?
Not Mario yet, although New Super Mario Brothers did come out eventually.
Oh, okay.
And then there was also Brain Age, which was a pretty fun little time-wasting style game.
Yeah, no.
Along with a ton of other games over the years.
Oh, yes.
And then during this point, we also got quite possibly one of the most pointless systems ever made, in my opinion.
Yep.
The Game Boy Micro.
Yep.
So, after the DS was released, Nintendo released, I guess, their final attempt at the Game Boy line, which was the Game Boy Micro, which was the tiniest Game Boy ever made.
Yep. Like,
this thing is puny.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fits in your back pocket. It's smaller than your wallet.
Yep.
Hell, it could probably fit in your wallet if you try hard enough. But, and it's... The Game Boy Micro is weird. It has quite possibly the best screen Nintendo's ever made.
Mm-hmm.
They got rid of the Game Boy Color and original Game Boy backwards compatibility, so it's strictly a Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
And but it has the headphone jack back, so there's that.
That's something. Not a lot, but it's something.
And it also had interchangeable faceplates.
Oh.
So you could change the color and faceplate.
I guess that's interesting.
The problem is, though, it kind of came out at a point where it was like no one asked for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, how much did the Micro go for when it came out?
Yeah, it just seems
I want to say
silly
it was
to me.
Yeah, the Micro was sold. Okay, so it was only $100.
Yeah. I guess it was like considered the cheaper option, you know, maybe because not everyone could afford the DS, you know, so maybe.
Yeah, the thing was, though, the DS had so much more to offer.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that, but think about it like maybe you're a family, you don't have a lot of money, it's Christmas time, you want to get them the Nintendo product, but you can't afford the DS right now, so you get them, this one that's only $100, that's a lot cheaper. They can still play blah 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 games, you know. So
this is true, although looking at sales numbers, though, it only sold 2 million.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised.
Which, for numbers wise, that's not particularly great.
No.
I always thought Nintendo was like trying to go for like the Apple marketing style at the time.
Okay.
Like that whole like trying to be hip and cool to the younger audience with it.
Yep.
And you know what? You know what's funny about the Micro nowadays?
Yep.
They're expensive as shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like they are not cheap systems. They are very hard to come by these days. Like I bought mine from Bowser's Basement, shout out.
Yep.
For like $150, and I think they're even more now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're not cheap. But moving back to the DS, so DS and PSP would kind of fight back and forth
Yeah.
during this whole era, and it was a very one-sided fight.
Mhm.
It was kind of like Sony would try, and they'd succeed, but Nintendo would just do everything better.
Yeah.
And eventually, Nintendo updates the DS because the original DS was frankly kind of ugly,
Yeah.
very chunky. I still have my old chunkster that our mother tells us she had to fight for. So
I have my Chunkster too.
and so they would update it to the DS Lite, which is by far probably the definitive DS to own.
Mhm.
Because it's smaller, slimmer, sleeker, better screen, better battery.
Yeah.
Still has the GBA slot, although the GBA cartridges kind of hang out of it now.
Yeah. It's a lot more streamlined, so it's a lot more.
Yeah. But that's kind of the DS that most people think of with the system.
Mhm.
And then that was followed up by another kind of bizarre who asked for this system,
Oh no.
the DSi.
Oh.
You remember the DSi.
I had one, but I it's so weird. Like, I know I had one because you said I had one, but like
So you didn't play like any games on it when you bought it. You played with the cameras and the audio. The
Oh
audio
yeah,
thing
yeah, yeah. I
most
did.
of the time.
I did.
I mean, the DSi was essentially the predecessor to the 3DS in a lot of ways because it had a
Yeah.
menu system. You could download software to it.
Yeah.
Like it was like Nintendo finally were like moving ahead.
I wonder if it was like kind of Nintendo like testing out their software. They weren't completely ready for the 3DS to come out, but they wanted to kind of test some of the features with the public, so they put out the
It's
DSi.
very possible.
Yeah.
Or they were just testing ideas that they wanted to use in future projects.
Yeah. I think it might have been a mix of that too. I mean, I think the camera option.
Yeah.
I remember I took so many selfies with that, and if I find that DSi one day, I'm gonna cringe.
Oh yeah, probably.
Because we had cell phones at the time that you couldn't take you couldn't like take selfies with or like pictures on. So that's what I used, and oh the cringe. Anyways, let's never think
And
about
around
that again.
Yeah, and around this time too, the PSP also had a few redesigns.
Oh, it didn't have the slidey like the.
So we'll get to that one. There was the original chunky model is the one I originally had.
Yep.
Then there was the 2000 model, which is the one I ended up getting a 2000 model later on, which was just a slimmer, cheaper model. They kind of got rid of some of the excessive stuff from because the PSP actually used mini discs.
Yep.
Which was one of the reasons why the PSP had shit battery life, but it was rechargeable, so no one cared.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it was sleeker, slimmer. Then there was a 3000 model, which was even slimmer and sleeker.
Mhm.
And then there was finally the PSP Go,
Yeah.
which was a very ahead of its time idea that was just too ahead of its time for what it was.
Yeah.
So the PSP Go was literally it was a PSP, but they got rid of the disk drive.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the first digital only systems
Mhm.
in this era, like of gaming.
Oh, so like you couldn't. There was no cards or anything.
was
You had
no-
to download everything. Oh.
Did not work with physical media. It was a strict download only system.
Wow.
Good idea, too early.
Yeah. Is it is it basically not even usable at this point? If you like bought one and it didn't have any games on it, you couldn't access the store at this point, right?
I don't know if the PSP store has been discontinued yet.
No.
I'd have to look into that. Because I think it was going to be, and then they bitched about it, so they decided not to shut it. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Okay.
But, I mean, theoretically, you could probably jailbreak the damn thing at this point.
Oh
and
yeah,
pirate.
no, probably
But-
at this point.
I don't own a PSP Go because I have no use for one.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It was a cool idea. It's a cool looking system. It's nice. I
Yeah,
like the
no,
idea.
it's interesting. I mean, like it's kind of
It just that the world wasn't ready for this yet.
no, yeah,
And the PSP, the regular PSP 3000, could do everything the Go could do, plus play physical games.
yeah. So it's kind of silly.
So, yeah, it was just a good idea, not ready yet.
Yeah, just not its
Kind of,
time.
it was kind of like the Sega Nomad in a way.
Yeah. No, yeah. Huh. Interesting.
But or even the N-Gage or the I don't want to say the Gizmondo because that thing was stupid. But
So I have a question. Since we're kind of in the era of Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, did the Xbox ever come out with any handheld consoles, or am I spoiling?
No.
No. Okay. So they just never
I-
even dabbled into that market. Which
I
is
want to say if they
understandable.
even I want to say if they even like were tempted by it, they probably looked at the PSP and just decided it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. No. And I just was curious because we're talking about the main ones now, and like you haven't said anything about Microsoft, so I was just genuinely curious.
No. No, Microsoft actually released a bunch of their properties on Game Boy, Nintendo DS actually, believe it or not.
Oh.
Like Viva Pinata, which was an Xbox 360 exclusive, actually got a couple DS games too.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It made more sense, honestly, and they weren't going to work with Sony. They'd rather work with Nintendo.
Yeah. Womp womp.
So yeah, so now we get to. So this is actually probably the saddest era of handhelds, because now we're right at the end,
Yep.
and so this is around the point where mobile phones started kind of becoming a thing,
Ah, yep.
and now mobile phones are basically gaming platforms,
Yeah.
and the future of handheld gaming was kind of looking in doubt, because then we get Nintendo announces their next handheld, the Nintendo 3DS.
Woo!
And boy, are people indifferent to it when it gets announced.
Oh, womp womp.
Well, it was essentially, in terms of graphical capabilities, it was a slightly more powerful PSP.
Yep.
And its big gimmick was, it was in 3D,
Ooh.
with no glasses.
Ooh.
Admittedly, it does look cool,
Yeah.
but so, it looked cool at first, but I would generally turn it off whenever I got the shot. And
Yeah.
I don't even, my current 3DS is a 2DS XL, a
Yeah.
new 2DS XL, so, yeah.
It's funny. I think, honestly, thinking about it, I think I used the 3D ability like the first 2 times I played it. The
Yeah,
3DS,
I got done with it.
and then I
very
turned
fast.
it off and never. I don't think I've ever switched it back on. I don't.
No, a lot of games too towards the end didn't even bother with it.
No, it was kind of dumb. Well, I mean, it was a cool idea, but not very like practical for the eyeballs.
So, during the DS's, the 3DS's lead up, Sony announces their successor, at the time known as the Next Gen Portable NGP,
Yep.
eventually being revealed as the Vita.
Woo!
And the Vita was, I'm not gonna lie, it was fucking impressive when I first saw it.
Woo! Yeah.
Because, I mean, the thing with 2 analog sticks, that was a huge complaint with the PSP, was it only had the 1 analog stick.
Yep.
Vita's got 2.
Yep.
3DS only has 1.
Ah.
It has touchscreen on the front, touchpad on the back. It uses cards rather than discs, so there's no more of the disk drive anymore. And it has not quite HD, but they're also like really high definition graphics for a handheld.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the most powerful handheld device on the planet, probably.
And it has Persona.
Well, that's beside the point. We're not even getting into game libraries.
Yeah.
So people are immediately saying, "Oh, this is going to be the final nail in the coffin for Nintendo." Because you got to remember too, Nintendo was struggling at the time. Because this is right around when the Wii U launched, well, the lead up to the Wii U. The Wii was kind of like, it was still successful, but people were losing interest in it.
Yeah.
And the DS, as great as it is, was showing its age.
Yeah. No, it was older.
And the 3DS, admittedly, from first glance, did not look that impressive.
No, it was just an updated Nintendo DS
especially
at that point.
especially compared to the Vita, which looked fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Then the 3DS comes out.
Yep.
And it's a very slow start.
Yes.
Now, granted, fully backwards compatible with DS games, so already that's a plus.
Yeah.
And, you know, software eventually came out, like eventually a Pokemon came out, Animal Crossing.
Yes.
And
Animal
suddenly
Crossing
like
New
that-
Leaf. Woo!
Yep.
And that brought
And
a lot of people to buy a Nintendo
Oh, yeah.
3DS.
And suddenly like that, now the 3DS is super popular.
Yeah.
The Vita, on the other hand. So, at the start, they announced for the Vita a ton of very cool looking software. Like it had an Uncharted game at launch. There was like going to be a Resistance game, a Killzone, all their big name franchises, like Little Big Planet.
Yep.
So those all come out. Some are hit or miss, some are more mediocre than others.
Yep.
Then it's like they just gave up.
Like nothing came out.
Well, no, stuff came out, but nothing. There was no like wow factor games.
No big like title games.
So we make the joke that Persona 4 was the big ticket game. That's not exactly untrue.
No, yeah. I
Like,
mean, like
so-
there was like Rayman on it, but you could play Rayman on different.
Well, yeah, that's the
Consoles.
thing. I mean, yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool. It's cool. Well, to be fair, you could play Rayman on the freaking 3DS.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, womp womp.
It didn't look as nice, but you could still play it. So it's like we made the joke was made about the PSP being the JRPG machine.
Yeah.
The Vita was literally the JRPG machine.
I also think too. One thing too is in Japan, it also was like the visual novel game.
Well, to be fair, the PSP was as well, and even the
Oh yeah.
the DS and 3DS had a good share too, just not as many because they weren't so much into the more risque ones, as you could say.
Oh yeah, no. But like the PSP and the Vita, like I remember like watching like animes during like a phase where I watched like a lot of like the reverse harem animes because you got to see all the pretty men. It was fighting over one girl. But a lot of them were based off Vita and PSP games, and I never made that connection until like I got more interested in video games and stuff, and then I was like, wow, like.
And the Vita was infamous for this.
Oh
like,
yeah.
I love the Vita. I am a huge Vita supporter. Like my Vita library is pretty impressive.
Yep.
Granted, it's about 50% JRPGs and visual novels, but still.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the sad part is too that literally all of its killer apps have been taken from it as well.
Yeah, like Persona 4.
Like,
Golden.
Persona 4 Golden is now on PC. All the Danganronpa games are now taken off, are
Yeah.
on like
You can
PC
play it on the
and
Switch,
console.
everything.
Yeah. It had a big game called Gravity Rush.
Oh, okay.
That is now on PS4 and as well. And it was just like it never had a chance
Yeah.
because Sony just gave up so fast.
Yeah.
And it's a shame too because it had so much potential. Like you could play PSP, PS1 games on it, all sorts of downloadable stuff. I mean, it had cool little like mini games too that no one even noticed, like Sound Shapes,
Yep.
which was a music. It was like a music-based platformer.
Yep. Sorry. I'm like laughing. So I googled one of the shows that I had watched to see if it was a Vita game, and it was.
Which one?
It was called Kami. I'm not gonna say it right. Kamigami no Asobi. I don't think that's correct at all. And it had multiple games. It was basically centered around this girl got put into this world with a bunch of gods. Like, and they were Norse
Okay.
gods, Japanese gods, and like Greek
Sure.
gods. And basically, she had to go around and like. It was like you obviously in a visual novel you pick one person, that's your route,
Yeah.
and you follow the route, and there's multiple routes with multiple different good and bad endings. But this one was like the whole story behind it was like none of the gods understood like humans, like they were all a bunch of assholes. So she had to show them that humanity is a good thing.
Yes. I mean, it was pretty common. I mean, there's a series on the Vita
They also
called
made
Code.
like custom like well I'm assuming they're stickers or something, but like little stickers that you could put on your Vita. That's
Yeah,
so
I've seen
funny.
those. There was actually a series called Code Realize, which was like just a
I
dating
saw pictures
sim.
of that. No, that's what that one is. It's just a dating sim.
Oh yeah, like there's a ton of those. There's actually a My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu game on the Vita too. That's a visual novel.
Oh, I know this one too. I'm like seeing just all these like anime. Oh, the most infamous of them all, of all the reverse horrible shows.
What?
It's called Diabolic Lovers, and it's probably like one of the worst animes ever made.
That just sounds terrible.
It's horrible. It's awful. Oh.
But
So
anyways,
bad.
getting back on track now.
Getting back on track. This is so funny now. I'm sorry, I just can't get over this.
So, while the PSP and DS obviously were not close at all,
Yeah.
the PSP still sold a decent amount compared to the freaking compared to the DS at the time.
Yeah.
Now the 3DS sold 76 million.
Wow.
The Vita sold 16.2 million.
Oh, okay. So.
That's just barely above the Game Gear.
Yeah.
That's not really good.
No. And I'm also going to take a gander that a lot of the sales were more in Japan.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it was discontinued in 2019.
Aw. Well, that's still. Well, I don't. When did it come out?
2011. So I mean, it had.
Well, I guess it had. Oh, good. It had some. It's tough.
It had a run, but I mean.
Yeah. The DS was
it wasn't
just
like.
so. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, actually, ironically, the 3DS only lasted 1 year longer
Oh, okay.
because that was discontinued in 2020.
Yeah, but
But
for obvious reasons why it was discontinued.
yeah. So now I guess we'll get to the I guess the end point of handheld gaming in a sense.
The Switch, bitch.
Yeah. So after the colossal failure of the Wii U,
Yep.
Nintendo, I'm convinced Nintendo gave up on the console market
Yeah.
and decided, we are the masters of the handheld market. Let's make as powerful a handheld as we can physically make.
Yeah.
And find a way that it can also work on TV.
Yeah.
And that's basically what they did. So the Switch is literally everything the Wii U wanted to be, but better.
Yeah.
And it's literally it's essentially a souped up HD tablet.
Yep.
With connectable controllers called Joy-Cons.
Yep.
For people who have been living under a rock for the past 10 years.
Yep.
But and it's literally you can essentially you plug it into an upscaler and it plays on a TV like a regular console.
Yeah.
And it was a runaway success.
Yeah.
One of the most hyped system launches I think in a long time.
Yep.
It overshot the Wii U's lifetime sales within a year, I think.
Mhm.
And what's funny though is, like Nintendo always does, the 3DS did not die initially.
No, yeah, they kept it going.
Because the Switch released in 2017.
Yep.
The 3DS was discontinued in 2020.
Yep.
And they kept putting out 3DS games. There was still 3DS games coming out until around 2019.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced what killed the 3DS was the disastrous poor reception of Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story remake.
Oh, yeah.
Because that remake is one of the worst selling... Actually, I think it is the worst selling Mario game of all time.
Oh, really?
And it single-handedly killed the company that made it.
Wow. Oh, that sucks.
And it's not even a bad remake. It's such an unnecessary remake.
Yeah. Because Bowser's Inside Story didn't come out, that long ago.
Well, it came out in 2009.
Yeah, but that's still not that long ago.
That's over a decade ago, Alex.
Yeah. Well, I know, but considering. Sorry, you're probably gonna hear some background noise in the podcast right now.
That's fine.
Um,
I'll deal with it. But
Yeah.
I mean, it had been 9 years. The thing was though, well, it had been over a decade. The thing was though, Bowser's Inside Story was a DS game, and the
Yeah.
3DS was backwards compatible with the DS.
yeah,
It's not like the original game, which also was remade, which was
Yeah.
a Game Boy Advance game that was not easy to come by.
yeah. Like it just kind of seems like kind of dumb. Like why?
They also didn't advertise it at all, and it kind of just came out.
yeah,
And granted, the Mario and Luigi series was on a decline
yeah,
to begin with, but I think the disastrous poor sales of that game basically led Nintendo to just say, you know what, we're done with this.
yeah.
Because apparently I've read there was more stuff planned for the 3DS.
But they were just like, never mind, we killed it.
No, it was pretty much, I'm assuming, all transitioned over to the Switch.
Wow. How many did it sell? I'm like genuinely curious now. Oh, only
it's not good.
22,000?
Yeah, it was not good.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
It bankrupted Alpha Dream. Like, Alpha Dream is no longer a company now.
That sucks. Wow, that's just like
And
for Mario and Luigi, like that's insane to think about.
It was just-
22,000.
it was just that pointless. And also the game has
Yeah.
performance issues and stuff.
Oh, well, that sucks too.
Yeah, it's a very baffling.
That's just
Thing.
crazy to think about. Oh, wow. Worst
And yeah,
selling
following-
Mario game since the Virtual Boy in Japan.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't count Mario Clash.
Oh,
that
yeah,
didn't have
no.
a chance. As a mainline Mario game, it's actually kind of scary how bad that game did.
Yeah. That's just so I'm like baffled by seeing 22,000. Like that's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like I thought at least 1 million. Like I didn't even think it was gonna I thought it was gonna at least get to
Oh, I
like
mean-
1 million and be poor. I never thought like 22,000.
Oh yeah,
That's just
and
crazy.
even the Superstar Saga remake did decent. for
That's
the
like the
time.
population of a town. Like of a
Yeah.
city. Like that's nothing. Wow. Sorry, that's just like wow.
Yeah,
Think
it was
about-
crazy. But yeah, so after that, Nintendo's been full on Switch ever since, and honestly, that's where the handheld market is now. This Nintendo has just merged
Yeah.
the two.
No, yeah, I mean, there's like the Nintendo Switch Lite, which is basically just a handheld version.
It's for if you don't want to play on the TV, basically.
Yeah, I'm glad.
My Switch is like 80% of the time docked, so
Yeah. Mine's 50-50.
But-
It depends on what I'm playing. Like, if I'm playing Pokemon, I'm gonna have it in my hands. But if I'm playing something like... if I was playing, like, what's it called? Mario Odyssey, I'd play it on the TV.
yeah, or your One Piece game.
Yes, that too. Yeah, because I tried playing on the thing, but I wanted to play it with a Pro controller, so...
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's nuts because handheld gaming has essentially come to an end, and it was a long run.
Yeah.
Well, not so much an end, more of just it has become just part of gaming in general now.
Yeah.
Like, there's no more two races going on. It's now merged into
One.
Nintendo
I...
has taken their claim.
Yeah. I wonder, thinking about it now, is this going to affect, like, the future products made by PlayStation and Microsoft?
Well,
like, I just wonder if
I'm-
this could affect how they approach making their consoles in the
So-
future.
There's been theories going on now whether or not this is going to be the final console, whether the Xbox One X, not One the X, whatever the new Microsoft Xbox is called.
Yeah.
And there's theories that and the PS5 may be the final video game consoles to ever release. I think that's a bunch of shit, and people are just being dramatic like
yeah.
always. But
I think so, too.
remember, compact discs were supposed to be discontinued like 10 years ago, and they're still making new ones. So
Yeah.
People don't, as much as digital media is coming, people are stubborn like that, and they're
Yeah.
not going to give up their physical media anytime soon.
No, yeah. I mean, I believe it when I see it. Whenever those like
Yeah.
rumors come out, like I remember this one rumor. I don't know what it was, but I'm like totally brain. I had it in my head, but it's gone now. And I'm just like, dang,
So
I lost
when
it. Womp womp.
when the Switch became the mega success it was, because it's already at like 92 million units or something,
Yeah.
and growing, obviously. I was under the assumption that the next PlayStation and Xbox would try to like replicate this,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not really shocked, but I was a little kind of like underwhelmed when I was like, oh no, they're just not even gonna bother.
Yeah. But also,
Which, I mean, I guess in hindsight, probably for the better.
well, also you also have to think about of like when the development for these products started. Probably started
that's true.
before the Switch was even out. So it's probably like, well, we're not gonna like tank the idea that we're already almost done with, because even though like things can be changed, when you're thinking about, I'm just thinking about it from my like manufacturing perspective and like process perspective. You know, when the Switch came out, they were probably into like prototyping it and like having the software ready, but coming up with design changes at this point, because products don't usually come out onto the market until like they're usually in storage for a while before they're out on the market. So
I'm telling you now, the PS6 is already in pre-planning phases.
oh yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's somewhat Switch like. Not
I
Switch,
don't
but
know.
maybe
I'm pretty sure
the idea of it being portable, like taking it wherever you go.
See, my whole thing is, though, Nintendo owns this market and no other company will ever touch it.
No, true, but maybe
I don't know if Sony's daring enough to try again, honestly.
You never know.
And Microsoft, I'm curious if Microsoft's even going to bother in the coming years.
No.
Because I feel like they're just going to go all in PC pretty soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that.
Hell, the day I know the world is in truly crazy is when we start seeing Nintendo games on PC.
Yeah, that'll be.
Because we're already seeing PlayStation stuff.
Yeah.
Granted, Sony's releasing their games well after they've already been on console for a while.
Yeah, no, true.
It's not like Microsoft where it's like day one it's on both, and it's like, oh, why buy an Xbox?
Yeah, you can just play it on the computer. No, true.
Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Switch is great. I'm happy it's where it is. It's just, it's kind of weird. It's just kind of weird. No more handheld systems.
Well, it's just kind of interesting that we kind of lived through this whole era. You know, I mean, not the original like Game Boy, but we did live through a good portion of like handheld systems.
I mean, we were alive when the original Game Boy was still technically in production.
Yeah, so it's just interesting to see. Like, we saw the beginning of the era, and now we're seeing the era come to an end.
We've seen the mess. We've basically seen Nintendo dominate for literally 3 decades.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, they figured it out.
Yep, they sure did.
Gunpei Yokoi was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
People complain about Nintendo's stupid bullshit, but I mean, they had some of the most influential people of all time working there.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, they still do. I mean, Miyamoto's still there.
Oh yeah, he's still there, and he's still in like all of the what's it called? The Nintendo
press
things.
conferences.
Yeah, he's always there. So.
I mean, they had the great Satoru Iwata, like one of the most talented people ever. Rest in peace.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about how dumpy of a company they can be sometimes.
Oh yeah, but they all kind of are.
Oh no, they're all shit when you really look into it. But
oh yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, and I mean, the Switch is going to be around for many more years. I'm convinced.
Many more. Yeah, I mean, because they're already releasing. They released like that new one, but it's basically just still the Switch, but has a bigger screen.
It's the same thing, but it looks slightly nicer.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, if it ain't
something
great,
that really
fix it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need graphics for what it's doing, so.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I mean, Handheld gaming. What a trip.
Yep. What a trip.
Yeah, but I think we'll wrap it up here because that was.
Yeah, this will
honestly
be a
we could.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a good one.
Honestly, we could probably go deeper into some of the more obscure ones at some point, but for now,
Yeah.
I think we'll cut it off here.
Yeah.
And once again, guys, thanks for joining us. The Gaming and Collecting Podcast is made on Anchor Podcast, and you can find us on all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcast and Spotify.
Woo.
And you can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and as well as on Good Pods. And the episodes will usually be up on YouTube at some time after the fact, basically whenever I get around to it.
Woo.
And once again, guys, thanks for joining us on the Gaming and Collecting Podcast. We will see you all next time.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Doo.